And if he slips free? Theo's grin was feral. He won't. I've got you, Lark. The music swelled, their bodies close, the court's eyes on them. Beatrice's glare burned, and Rupert's gaze was a cold weight. As the waltz ended, Theo bowed, his lips grazing her knuckles, a vow in his eyes. They moved toward the dais, the evidence heavy in Theo's coat, but Rupert struck first. "Lords and ladies!" Rupert's voice cut through the hall, sharp as a guillotine. He stepped forward, a letter in hand, his smile venomous. "I bring grave news. This betrothal is a sham. Lady Eleanor Pembroke has deceived you all, spying for her own gain, plotting against Prince Theodore." Gasps rippled through the crowd, the court's eyes darting to Nora. King William's face darkened, his fist slamming the arm of his throne. "Explain this, Theodore." Theo's hand tightened on Nora's, his jaw clenched, his eyes flashing to her, pain and betrayal raw. "Is it true, Nora?" he asked, his voice low, each word a wound. "Were you working with him?" Her heart shattered, but she stepped forward, her chin high, her voice steady despite the tears threatening. "No, Theo, it's a lie. Rupert blackmailed me to spy, threatening to expose our ruse. I gave him nothing real, only what protected you." His gaze searched hers, doubt warring with love. "You kept this from me," he said, his voice breaking, "after everything." The court's whispers grew, Beatrice's smirk a dagger, Lavinia's eyes curious. King William rose, his voice thunderous. "Silence, Theodore! Is this true? Have you disgraced the crown with this charade?" Theo faced his father, his shoulders squared, his voice steady. "The engagement began as a plan, yes, to protect Nora's family and my choice. But my love for her is real, father. She's no traitor. She's the truest soul I know." Nora's breath caught, his defence aflame through her fear, but Rupert pressed forward, waving the letter. "She wrote to me, Your Majesty. Proof of her deceit. She's played the prince and this court for fools." The crowd murmured, the evidence in Theo's coat now a risk. If Rupert spun their proof as part of Nora's plot, their gambit could collapse. Nora's mind raced, her eyes meeting Maggie's across the room, her sister's worry a mirror of her own. "Theo," she whispered, her hand on his arm. "Show them the ledger. Now." He nodded, his face grim, and stepped forward, pulling the ledger and letters from his coat. "Father, lords, ladies, this is the truth. Lord Rupert Godwin plots to assassinate you with Valoria's aid. Captain Varick, his hired killer, is in custody. These documents, maps, letters, this ledger, prove it. And Lord Harrow, your counsellor, is his ally." The hall erupted, guards seizing Rupert as he shouted denials, his face pale. Harrow at the dais froze, his guilt plain. King William's eyes narrowed, his voice icy. "Seize Harrow. Theodore, bring me Varick's confession." Theo signalled Cedric, but Rupert's letter still hung over them, a shadow on Nora's honour. Beatrice stepped forward, her voice saccharine. "Your Majesty, if Lady Eleanor's false, what of her family? The Pembrokes are tainted by her lies." Nora's blood boiled, but Maggie's hand on her arm steadied her. "Let me," Maggie whispered, stepping forward, her voice clear. "My sister's no traitor. She risked everything for this kingdom, for love. Judge her by her actions, not Rupert's venom." The court quieted. Maggie's courage a spark, but William's gaze was unyielding. "This court will decide the truth," he said. "Theodore, Eleanor, prove your loyalty or face the consequences." Theo's hand found Nora's, his grip fierce, but his eyes held a storm of doubt. The clock ticked toward midnight, the toast looming, and the second traitor's shadow deepened the danger. Nora's heart pounded, the silent lark's voice silenced by her own secrets, the gambit teetering on the edge of ruin. The Equinox Bull's splendour hung by a thread, Ashwick Hall's ballroom a glittering cage of candlelight and suspicion. Lady Eleanor Pembroke stood rigid, her amethyst gown catching the flickering glow, her raven hair pinned high, her blue-grey eyes steady despite the court's accusing stares. At 24, the silent lark had faced ruin before. But Rupert Godwin's revelation of her blackmail letter, proof she'd written to him under duress, threatened to shatter everything. The ledger, letters, map, and Captain Varick's confession, meant to expose Rupert's assassination plot, were now at risk of being twisted into her disgrace. Prince Theodore Langley stood beside her, his dark coat stark against the hall's opulence, his chestnut hair catching the light, his hazel eyes raw with betrayal. At 28, the roguish prince had bared his heart to Nora, only to hear Rupert claim she'd spied against him. His defence of their love moments ago had steadied her, but his doubt, sparked by her silence, was a blade between them. The clock neared midnight, the king's toast looming, and the poison meant for King William was still a threat. King William loomed on the dais, his silver hair glinting beneath his crown, his face thunderous. "Theodore, Eleanor, step forward!" he barked, his voice shaking the chandeliers. "This court will have the truth, or you'll both answer for it." Theo's hand brushed Nora's, a fleeting anchor, but his jaw was tight, his gaze searching hers. "No more secrets, Nora," he whispered, his voice low, strained. "We end this now." She nodded, her heart pounding, Rupert's blackmail a weight she could no longer bear. "Together," she said, her voice firm, though fear coiled in her gut. Lord Cedric, their ally, emerged from the crowd, his face grim. "Your Majesty, Captain Varick is secured. He's confessed. Rupert hired him to poison you at the toast with Lord Harrow's aid. The evidence is here." He handed Theo the ledger, letters, and Varick's signed confession, the papers heavy with truth. Theo stepped forward, his voice steady, commanding. "Father, these prove Rupert's treason. Maps of secret passages, letters to Valoria, a ledger of payments for arms and assassins. Lord Harrow, your counsellor, is the second traitor named in a note Nora found. They planned your death tonight." The hall erupted, gasps and shouts drowning the violins. Rupert, flanked by guards, sneered, his lean frame tense. "Lies! The Pembroke girl forged those to save herself. She's the traitor, writing to me in secret." Nora's blood chilled, but she stepped forward, her chin high. "I wrote one letter under blackmail to protect Prince Theodore and this kingdom. It contained nothing of value, only lies to keep Rupert at bay. The true treason is yours." Harrow, pale at the dais, stammered, but William's eyes narrowed. "Guards, seize Harrow!" he roared. Soldiers dragged the counsellor away, his protests lost in the din. Beatrice Harcourt, lingering near Lavinia, smirked, her green eyes gleaming with Nora's downfall. The clock struck midnight, and a servant approached with the king's goblet, his movements stiff. Nora's gaze snapped to Theo, her instinct sharp. "The poison!" she hissed. Theo lunged, knocking the goblet from the servant's hand, the wine splashing across the marble, a faint acrid scent rising. Guards tackled the servant, revealing a Valorian tattoo on his wrist, Varick's man. The court gasped, William's face paling as he realized the danger. "Theo, you saved him," Nora whispered, pride swelling despite the chaos. His gaze met hers, a flicker of warmth, but Rupert's voice cut through. "Your Majesty, Lady Eleanor's letter proves her deceit. She's played your son, this court, for fools." Theo's face hardened, his eyes locking on Nora, pain flashing. "Is there more, Nora?" he asked, his voice a fractured whisper. "What else did you hide?" Her heart shattered, but she faced him, her voice steady. "Nothing, Theo. I wrote to Rupert once, under threat, to protect you, our families, our love. I'd do it again to keep you safe." His jaw clenched, his hands fisting. "You should have trusted me," he said, his voice breaking, raw with hurt. "I laid my heart bare, Nora, in the library, the garden. I said I loved you, and you carried this alone." Tears pricked her eyes, but she held his gaze, the court's whispers a storm. "I love you, Theo. I was terrified of losing you, of you charging into Rupert's trap. Every secret was for us." William's voice boomed, silencing the hall. "Enough, Lady Eleanor, your deceit taints this crown. You are banished from this court, effective immediately." Nora's breath caught, the decree a blow. But Theo's silence cut deeper. He turned away, his shoulders rigid, his voice barely audible. "I need time, Nora." The court's eyes burned, Beatrice's smirk a dagger, Lavinia's gaze curious. Maggie pushed through the crowd, her golden curls wild, her hand gripping Nora's. "You're not alone," she whispered, her voice fierce. Thomas beside her nodded, his shy strength a quiet vow. Nora lifted her chin, her pride unbroken despite the ache. "I've done nothing but serve this kingdom," she said, her voice clear, ringing through the hall. "Judge me as you will, but my heart is true." William's gaze was unyielding, but Maggie's grip steadied her. "Come, Nora," her sister said softly, "we'll face this together." As they turned to leave, Beatrice stepped forward, her voice saccharine. "Such a pity, Lady Eleanor. Your family's ruin is complete now." Nora's eyes flashed, but she held her tongue, her dignity a shield. The ballroom's glow faded behind them, the weight of Theo's rejection and the court's scorn heavy on her shoulders. In the corridor, Maggie hugged her, tears in her eyes. "You're the bravest person I know," she said. "Theo will see the truth." Nora's smile was brittle, her heart fractured. "He may, Maggie, but I can't wait for him to decide my worth." Thomas cleared his throat, his blush fierce. "We'll stand by you, Nora, always." Her throat tightened, their loyalty alight through the gloom. But as they stepped into the night, the chill of exile settled in her bones. The silent lark had saved the king, unmasked traitors, but lost the man she loved. The throne's wrath had fallen, and her future hung in the balance, a storm yet to break. The dawn broke cold over Ashwick Hall, its marble spires piercing a sky heavy with clouds. Lady Eleanor Pembroke stood in her chamber, her grey travelling cloak stark against the room's faded opulence, her raven hair loose, cascading over her shoulders. At 24, the silent lark had faced ruin before, but King William's decree of banishment, coupled with Prince Theodore Langley's rejection, cut deeper than any scandal. Her blue-grey eyes, once bright with wit, were shadowed, yet her chin remained high, her pride a flame unquenched by the court's scorn. The Equinox Ball's aftermath lingered like a bruise. Rupert Godwin and Lord Harrow's arrest had saved the king, but Nora's blackmail letter, revealed as a desperate act to protect Theo, had branded her a traitor in the court's eyes. Theo's belief in her betrayal, his silence as she was banished, was a wound that bled anew with every breath. She packed her few belongings, a worn novel, a locket with her mother's portrait, her hands steady despite the ache in her chest. Margaret Maggie Pembroke burst into the room, her golden curls wild, her green eyes fierce with loyalty. "Nora, you can't leave like this," she said, her voice trembling. "Theo's wrong, he'll see it. You saved the king, unmasked traitors. You're no disgrace." Nora's smile was brittle, her voice soft. "The court doesn't care for truth, Maggie. Only appearances. I won't beg for their forgiveness, or his." Thomas, Maggie's betrothed, hovered at the door, his lanky frame awkward, his blush fierce. "We're with you, Nora," he stammered. "The Pembrokes don't bend, right?" Her throat tightened, their faith alight through the gloom. "Right," she said, squeezing Maggie's hand. "Let's go home. Father's debts are cleared. Thanks to Theo's promise, we'll rebuild together." The corridor echoed with their steps, the hall's grandeur now a hollow mockery. Whispers followed, maids pausing, nobles sneering. But Nora walked tall, her dignity a shield. At the grand staircase, Lady Beatrice Harcourt waited, her blonde curls perfect, her green eyes venomous. "Leaving so soon, Eleanor?" she purred, her smile a blade. "The Pembrokes' fall is such a tragedy." Nora's gaze was steel. "Better a fall with honour than a rise through treachery, Beatrice. Your letters to Rupert were found in his study. The court knows your shame." Beatrice's face paled, her smirk faltering. A nearby lord turned away, his whisper spreading, and Nora felt a spark of satisfaction. Beatrice's ties to Rupert, exposed by a careless note, had tarnished her golden facade, leaving her isolated in the court she'd schemed to rule. Outside, the carriage waited, its wheels creaking on the cobblestones. Maggie clung to Nora, tears falling. "You're my hero, Nora, always." Nora hugged her, her voice steady. "And you're mine, Maggie. Keep Thomas in line." Thomas grinned, helping them into the carriage. "I'll try, but she's a terror." As the carriage rolled away, Nora gazed at Ashwick Hall, its towers fading into the mist. Her heart ached for Theo, his chestnut hair, his hazel eyes, the rogue's grin that had stolen her soul. Their love, born in a fake betrothal, had felt real in the library's candlelight, the garden's moonlight. But his doubt, his choice to turn away, had broken something she wasn't sure she could mend. The road to Pembroke Manor was long, the moors stretching bleak under the grey sky. Nora's thoughts churned. Her family's future, her own path. She'd saved a kingdom, yet lost her place in it. At a roadside inn, a letter arrived, slipped under their door, its wax seal bearing Lady Amelia's crest, Theo's mother. Nora's hands trembled as she broke the seal, Maggie peering over her shoulder. The words were soft, deliberate. "Eleanor, my son loves you, but his heart was scarred by Cassandra, a lady who betrayed him for power. He fears lies, yet I see your truth. Give him time, for his soul is yours." Nora's breath caught, tears pricking her eyes. "He never told me," she whispered, the weight of Theo's past softening her anger. "But it doesn't change what he chose, Maggie." Maggie's voice was fierce. "He's a fool, Nora, but he's not lost. You're stronger than this pain." Nora folded the letter, her resolve hardening. "I am," she said, her voice clear. "I'll build a life, with or without him." The inn's fire crackled, its warmth a contrast to the chill in her bones. She thought of Thornfield's cliffs, its moonlit gardens, the places where Theo's touch had promised forever. Her love for him was a tide, unyielding, but she wouldn't drown in it. The silent lark had wings, and she'd fly, even if alone. Back in Ashwick Hall, the court buzzed with new scandals. King William summoned Theo to the throne room, his voice stern. "Your dalliance with that Pembroke girl is over," he said, his silver hair glinting. "Choose a bride, Lavinia or another. The crown demands it." Theo stood tall, his jaw tight, his hazel eyes distant. "I'll choose when I'm ready, father, not before." William's gaze narrowed, but Theo's resolve held, a spark of the rogue who'd defied duty for love. In his chambers he paced, Nora's face haunting him, her wit, her courage, the blue-grey eyes that had seen his soul. Her letter to Rupert, born of blackmail, gnawed at him, but Amelia's words echoed, "She protected you, Theodore. Don't let fear blind you." He clutched the locket Nora had once dropped, its weight a tether to her. The court's judgment, his father's demands, couldn't erase the truth. He loved her, and he'd failed her. As Nora's carriage rolled toward Pembroke Manor, Theo's heart turned toward redemption, a path he wasn't yet brave enough to take. Nora, gazing at the moors, felt the first stir of peace. She'd lost Theo, but not herself. The fall of truth had stripped her bare, but in its ashes she'd forge a future, proud, unbroken, and free. The Royal Assembly Hall of Ashwick Hall gleamed with cold grandeur, its marble pillars and gilded chandeliers casting a stark light over the gathered court. Lady Eleanor Pembroke stood at the centre, her grey cloak a defiant contrast to the noble's silks, her raven hair loose, framing her pale face. At 24, the silent lark had faced exile and scorn, but the weight of Prince Theodore Langley's impending words, his public end to their engagement, threatened to break her resolve. Her blue-grey eyes, sharp with pride, hid the ache of a heart that still loved him, despite his belief in her betrayal. Theo stood before her, his dark coat tailored to his broad shoulders, his chestnut hair catching the morning light, his hazel eyes tormented. At 28, the roguish prince had bared his soul to Nora, only to be wounded by her secret letter to Rupert Godwin, written under blackmail to protect him. The court's whispers swirled, King William's stern gaze fixed on his son, Princess Lavinia of Valoria watching with cool curiosity from the sidelines. Theo's voice cut through the silence, steady but raw. "Lady Eleanor Pembroke, I cannot marry you," he said, each word a blade. "Not when you hid the truth, keeping secrets that endangered us all." Nora's heart fractured, but she lifted her chin, her voice clear, unwavering. "I hid nothing that mattered, Theo. I wrote one letter under Rupert's threat to shield you, our families, our love. If my protection isn't enough, I won't beg for your trust." His gaze faltered, pain flashing in his eyes, but he turned away, the court's murmurs rising like a tide. Maggie Pembroke, Nora's sister, gripped her hand, her golden curls trembling, her green eyes fierce with loyalty. Thomas, Maggie's betrothed, stood beside them, his lanky frame tense, his quiet strength a vow. Nora's steps were firm as she walked out, the hall's opulence fading behind her, the weight of Theo's choice heavy on her shoulders. In the carriage rolling toward Pembroke Manor, Nora sat silent, the moors stretching bleak under a grey sky. Maggie's voice broke the quiet, soft but determined. "He's wrong, Nora. You're no traitor. Theo will see it. He has to." Nora's smile was faint, her fingers tracing the locket at her throat, a gift from her mother. "He chose fear over me, Maggie. I can't wait for him to find his courage." A sealed letter slipped under their inn's door the previous night lay in her lap, Lady Amelia's crest gleaming in the wax. Nora had read it a dozen times, its words a bittersweet balm. Theodore's heart was broken by Cassandra, a lady who lied for power. "He loves you, Eleanor, but fear blinds him. Give him time, for his soul is yours." Nora's anger softened, tears pricking her eyes. "He never told me about Cassandra," she said, her voice trembling, "but it doesn't change his choice. I'll build a life without him." Maggie hugged her, fierce. "You're enough, Nora, always." Nora's resolve hardened, her pride aflame. Pembroke Manor loomed ahead, its weathered stones a symbol of her family's survival. Her father's debts were cleared thanks to Theo's promise, but her heart bore new scars. She'd saved a kingdom, unmasked traitors, yet lost the man who'd made her believe in love. The silent lark would not falter. She'd forge a future free of Ashwick Hall's chains. Back in the palace, Theo paced his chambers, the locket Nora had once dropped clutched in his hand, its weight a tether to her. The court buzzed with demands, William's order to choose a new bride, Lavinia's looming presence, but Nora's face haunted him. Her wit, her courage, the blue-grey eyes that had seen his soul. Her letter to Rupert, born of blackmail, gnawed at him, but Amelia's words echoed. She protected you, Theodore. Don't let fear rule you. He stormed to the dungeons where Rupert Godwin sat, his lean frame slumped, his smirk faded. Tell me the truth, Theo demanded. What was Nora's letter? Rupert's eyes gleamed, calculating. She wrote to save you, you fool. One letter filled with lies to keep me from exposing your charade. She gave me nothing real. Her loyalty was yours. Theo's breath caught, Rupert's words a mirror to Nora's plea. He'd been blind, scarred by Cassandra's betrayal years ago, a wound he'd never shared. Nora hadn't betrayed him. She'd shielded him, and he'd cast her aside. His heart roared with regret, but the road to redemption felt impossibly long. In the throne room, William's voice was stern. You've ended this folly with the Pembroke girl, he said, his silver hair glinting. Choose Lavinia or another by week's end. Theo's jaw tightened, his voice low. I'll choose when I know the truth, father, not before. William's gaze narrowed, but Theo's resolve held, a spark of the rogue who defied duty for love. He clutched Nora's locket, its edges biting his palm. She was gone, exiled by his father's decree, her pride carrying her away from him. But the truth was dawning, and with it, a desperate need to make things right. At Pembroke Manor, Nora stepped into the familiar hall, its worn tapestries a comfort. Maggie and Thomas followed, their chatter alight in the gloom. Nora's father, frail but warm, embraced her. You're home, my girl, he said, his voice rough. You've done us proud. Her smile was steady, but her heart lingered on Theo, the masquerade kiss, the library's confession, the promise of a life together. She'd lost him, but not herself. As she gazed at the moors, a flicker of hope stirred. Perhaps in time she'd heal. But for now, the broken bond was hers to bear, and she'd carry it with the strength that had always defined her. The chapel at Thornfield glowed with the soft light of 100 candles, their flames dancing on the stained glass windows, casting jewel-like hues over the stone floor. Lady Eleanor Pembroke, now 24, stood at the altar, her ivory gown shimmering like moonlight, its lace tracing her form with delicate grace. Her raven hair fell loose, a cascade of midnight crowned with a simple circlet of pearls, her blue-grey eyes radiant with a love hard won. The silent lark, once bound by secrets and a fake betrothal, was about to wed Prince Theodore Langley for real, their bond forged through storms of betrayal and redemption. Theo stood before her, his dark suit tailored to his broad shoulders, his chestnut hair catching the candlelight, his hazel eyes warm with a promise that needed no words. At 28, the roguish prince had defied his father's crown and his own fears to claim Nora, his heart laid bare in the rain-soaked crossroads where he'd knelt for her forgiveness. The locket she'd once dropped hung at his throat, a symbol of their journey from pretense to truth. Maggie Pembroke, radiant in pale green, stood as Nora's maid of honour, her golden curls bouncing, her grin infectious. Thomas, her betrothed, fidgeted beside her, his lanky frame awkward in formal attire, his blush fierce as he caught her eye. The small gathering, loyal allies like Lord Cedric, Lady Amelia's serene presence, and a few trusted courtiers, filled the chapel with quiet joy. King William sat at the front, his silver hair stern but his nod begrudging, softened by Amelia's counsel and Theo's unyielding resolve. The priest's voice was gentle, weaving vows that bound them. Do you, Theodore, take Eleanor to be your wife, to love and honour in all the days of your life? Theo's gaze never left Nora's, his voice steady, rich with conviction. I do, forever, my lark. Nora's heart swelled, her smile teasing despite the tears pricking her eyes. And do you, Eleanor, take Theodore to love and honour through all that lies ahead? I do, she said, her voice clear, her wit sparking, though he's still a terrible dancer. Soft laughter rippled through the chapel, Theo's grin pure rogue. The rings, simple gold bands etched with a lark and a thorn, slipped onto their fingers, sealing their promise. The priest pronounced them wed, and Theo pulled her close, his kiss fierce yet tender, a vow that drowned out the world. Her fingers tangled in his hair, her lips answering his, their love a flame that had burned through every trial. The crowd cheered, Maggie's whoop loudest, Thomas's clap enthusiastic. As they turned to face their guests, Nora's hand found Theo's, their fingers entwined, their smiles mirroring the dawn breaking outside. The chapel doors opened to a crisp autumn morning, Thornfield's moors stretching golden under a clear sky. At the reception in the manor's hall, tables groaned with roasted pheasant, spiced apples and honeyed wine. Theo and Nora moved through toasts and laughter, their ease a contrast to the court's old intrigues. They'd already begun reforms, transparency in council, aid for families like the Pembrokes, reshaping Thornfield into a kingdom of hope. William's blessing, given reluctantly, marked a new era, his stern facade cracking as he raised a glass to his son. Maggie tugged Nora aside, her eyes bright. "You're glowing, Nora. Told you he'd come around." Nora laughed, hugging her sister. "You're insufferable, Maggie, but I love you." Thomas joined them, his voice shy. "We've news. Our wedding's set for spring. You'll be there, won't you?" Nora's smile was warm. "Wouldn't miss it, Thomas. Keep her out of trouble." Maggie elbowed him, grinning. "He tries." The music swelled, a waltz calling them to the floor. Theo led Nora out, his hand firm at her waist, their steps a memory of their first dance in Ashwick Hall, when a charade had sparked something real. "Still a terrible dancer," she teased, her blue-grey eyes sparkling. "And you're my lark," he murmured, his chestnut hair brushing her cheek. "Tamed me, love." "Never," she laughed, his dip pulling her close, their bodies warm. "I like you wild, Theo Langley." He grinned, his lips near her ear. "Good. I'll chase you forever, then." Her heart swelled, their pretense now a cherished spark that had ignited their love. "No more fake betrothals," she said, her fingers tracing his jaw. "Only real ones," he vowed, kissing her hand, his hazel eyes warm with a love weathered by storms. The music soared, their dance a promise, their laughter mingling with the hall's glow. As the night deepened, they slipped to the rose garden, the stars bright above. Theo's arm circled her, his warmth a shield against the chill. "We'll sail next month," he said, his voice soft. "Valoria, the Isles, wherever you want. The world's ours, Nora." She leaned into him, her smile radiant. "As long as I'm with you, I'm home." Their kiss was slow, a vow beneath the heavens, their future a canvas of adventure and love. Thornfield slept beyond, its heart renewed by their courage, their dance a symbol of a new dawn. The rose garden at Thornfield bloomed under a velvet sky, its petals silvered by moonlight, the air sweet with summer's end. Lady Eleanor Pembroke Langley, now 25, leaned against Prince Theodore Langley, her raven hair loose, glinting like a raven's wing, her hand resting on the gentle curve of her rounded belly. Her blue-grey eyes sparkled with mischief, her smile radiant as the stars above. The silent lark, once bound by a fake betrothal and courtly intrigues, had found her wings in a love that had weathered every storm. Theo, at 29, stood beside her, his chestnut hair brushing his brow, his hazel eyes warm with a love deeper than any crown. His arm circled her, his touch protective, tender, the locket she'd once dropped, now a cherished token at his throat. Their journey, from a desperate pact to save her family and his freedom through betrayal, exile and redemption, had forged a bond unbreakable, a kingdom reshaped by their courage. "Still a rogue," Nora teased, her voice playful, her fingers tracing his jaw, "plotting trouble under these stars, I wager." "And you're my lark," Theo murmured, kissing her temple, his smile pure rogue. "Ready to soar, love?" "Always," she said, her laugh bright, her gaze lifting to the heavens. "Though this little one demands a bigger nest soon." He chuckled, his hand covering hers, warm against her belly. "A palace, then, for you, our child, and every adventure we'll steal." She tilted her head, mock-stern. "No more fake betrothals, Theo Langley. I've had enough of your schemes." "Only real ones," he vowed, his lips finding hers in a slow, lingering kiss, a promise sealed beneath the stars. "You've tamed me, Nora, but I'll never stop chasing you." "Good," she said, her voice a challenge, her smile daring. "I'd hate to make it easy." Thornfield slept beyond, its moors quiet, its heart renewed by their reforms, fairness in courts, hope for families like the Pembrokes. Maggie and Thomas, wed in spring, thrived, their laughter a distant echo. King William, softened by time, had embraced their vision, his pride in Theo unspoken but clear. The silent lark and her prince had built a legacy stronger than any throne, their love a beacon for a starlit future.